Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have a pool 2 only build that was tweeted out by KMBest. I'll leave a link to his Twitter and Twitch in the description below. But the idea for this list and why it was so intriguing to me is that with the current card acquisition system, with the Series 4 and Series 5, and to an extent Series 3 cards, there is a lot of fear of missing out. There is a new shiny card that comes out, and it feels really bad that you can't unlock it without spending hundreds of dollars. And from that, we kind of spun into a leech leader meta that's able to combat those big explosive last turn plays. But without those, and without those shiny Series 4 and Series 5 cards, can you still gain cubes? Can you still play successfully in a high rank meta? So we are currently rank 111, and we're going to be using this deck list to test it out and see how it fares in the low infinite ranks. So from this list, it is all about keeping tempo, which is something that KMBest and his decks usually do very well. Is he wants to keep tempo, he wants to have value, because at the end of the game, if you have more value than your opponent, then you're going to win. And so simply put, you want to outpace your opponent at every step of the turn. And a lot of the core elements of this deck list want to help you retain your hand size. That way you have a big Devil Dino to play on 5 or 6, maybe 5 and 6 if you hit a Moon Girl, but you also have the flexibility of your Vision on 5. That way if you need a little bit more power push in your Storm lane, you can always drop Vision on 5, move him over into that lane, and then finish off the game with a Devil Dino into that other lane. So in some very brief testing, this did pretty well, but I am curious how it will stand up to a wider sample size. So let's go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Jay Conroe, and the first location is Vormir. We can actually use that if we don't want to drop anything else there. We could actually use that as a way to easily destroy our Nova. I don't know if that's what we're going to end up doing or not, but we are going to slow play it. It looks like they're playing a Bast, so they could be running an Adam Warlock to push some early value out onto the board and draw into some additional cards. So they could be running something like a Galactus, and if they are, they've played into Vormir. What we're going to do is we are going to lock down Washington, D.C. with Storm, and that is going to make any kind of Galactus playline unplayable in this match, because he would have to drop something and another card into Morag, but that does not look like what he is going for. It looks like this is maybe a Silver Surfer build that runs the Bast to draw into those extra resources. So I think we are probably outpowered and outmatched here. We are going to play it out a little bit. Nobody has snapped just yet. He does have a very strong Adam Warlock, and he is going to draw into pretty much his entire deck. We do get his Iron Man. It is too late for the flooded zone. All right, so we are clearly outpaced here. We are going to take the 1 cube retreat. We're going to showcase a few more losses in this matchup, because with this list, you're going to have to play it strategically to be able to gain cubes. It's not one that is so strong that you can just barrel through anything that you match up against. And with the Adam Warlock and the Mr. Negative, he clearly has the upper hand in this game. And so we're going to take the 1 cube loss and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have MGD, and the first location is Dark Dimension. So we're going to be able to hide some cards there. We actually just ran into MGD, and they are running a deck that uses Wong, and we didn't figure out the last turn play. We didn't look like we had the advantage or the lead, so we ended up retreating out. But I am curious what the rest of their play line is. We did hide a Lizard behind the Dark Dimension. We're going to go ahead and curve out our Scorpion and our Nova. We can always hide Killmonger into the Dark Dimension. That way it triggers at the end of the game, and it can impact as many cards as possible that we have on the board. Morag is going to be a little bit tough for us unless we want to just flood some cards, but I don't know that we do. I'm going to go ahead and play White Queen into Washington, D.C. That way we get a little bit of a feel for what they have in their hand. And Widow's Bite actually allows us to easily play a card into Morag if we want to. So their highest cost card is a Polaris, which is pretty interesting. We could go something like a Shang-Chi here, which would wipe out this demon card. I think we save that for next turn, though. I'm going to play Widow's Bite into the Killmonger here. Next turn, we can go Shang-Chi and then maybe like a Sentinel. Wow. Okay, we will take it. We'll go Shang-Chi into Sentinel. The Sentinel's not going to get the buff from Nova, but all 3 of these cards will, and all of these will as well. So it's definitely not ideal, but we might have a shot here. If they have a Wong and a Doctor Doom, then they would actually send a 5 power card here, which gets buffed up, so it's 8 power. And so even after taking this one away, they're going to have 10 power in this lane. So we will need the Nova bonus, I believe, to win this location, because all of these cards here have been impacted by the Scorpion. Oh, wow, it's the Typhoid Mary. Very interesting, which we ends up taking out just Typhoid Mary, but not the rest of the cards, but not Demon because it was reduced down to 8. What a strange match. The Killmonger is going to take out the Demon. We retain the lead in Washington, D.C. We get the lead in Dark Dimension. They, of course, didn't draw into their hazmat style of playline, but a win is a win. That covers the 2 retreats that we had to take with the deck, and so now we are net neutral. So we're not negative by any means. If we can win the games that the opponent doesn't draw into their favored playline, then that's really all we need to chip away at this cube game. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Verix, and the first location is Murder World. I'm going to go ahead and play our Nova into one of the other locations. We will end up leaning towards a Scorpion into a Storm in Murder World. That way we have 2 turns where we're pushing power into that location, and the opponent probably won't be dropping resources there. Now, they might get a read that we're going to change this location with Storm after this turn, after we drop Scorpion there, but it does give us at least a little bit of an advantage on them in that location. And it looks like they're running a Thanos deck list, and Killmonger, if we can draw into Killmonger, is going to be phenomenal for us. And if not, we do have the Shang-Chi. If they have anything incredibly large, if they have a lockjaw rotation, then we'll be able to Shang-Chi that lane. We do have Vision as the buffer to push more cards over into Murder World. I'm actually feeling pretty confident. They can't play into Nowhere. Well, if they do, the on reveals are not going to trigger. They can't play into Miniaturized Lab. And we're actually going to be able to lock this down so that the only place they can play is into Nowhere on 5. And that's definitely not ideal for a Thanos Stone deck list, because they want their on reveals so they can continue to draw additional cards. They can continue to get those increased upsides. And with this set of locations, they're going to have a very hard time doing that. So they do, ooh, it could be the Reality Stone in Murder World. But, oh no, so it's Psylocke. If they do draw into their Reality Stone, they can actually change this location, which, if it happens, it happens. I'm going to go ahead and do Moon Girl. We can do a Vision on 5. We can always do a double Mr. Fantastic in middle on 6, and that's going to impact both lanes. It's going to give us 12 power. That's going to be a 12 power play split across all 3 lanes there. And so that might be the play line. It might also be the play line to just go Devil Dino instead. I do like the idea of being able to do Vision to move over into the flooded lane. So if they end up like skipping here, absorbing some energy, but we could also look for a Killmonger if we draw into it, which I guess if we draw into Killmonger, we could do the Mr. Fantastic plus a Killmonger play. Killmonger would be played over into Miniaturized Lab to get the upside from Nova. They do allow Sunspot to absorb some energy here. And so depending on what they do, I think what we were going to angle to do, we did have the double Mr. Fantastic if we wanted to push 4 power into this lane, 4 into this one, and 4 into the far right lane. But I think what we were going to angle towards was moving our Vision over, dropping a Devil Dino into Nowhere. They would have had to skip with all of their energy to be able to outpace us in the flooded lane. And then the big Devil Dino coming down in Nowhere was going to be hard for them to compete against. And so we do find a win against a Thanos deck list, courtesy of the Miniaturized Lab, Nowhere, partially their draw. But at the same time, we are running pool 2 only cards, and we have 2 wins in a row now under our belt. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one, see if we can keep them going. All right, next up we have Lucina. The first location is Jotunheim, so that's going to support a big explosive last turn play. where we have something like Devil Dino or Vision that moves over into that location. And Warrior Falls is actually not terrible for this list. If they push a really big resource into that location, we can destroy it with Shang-Chi. We also have the big resources of our Devil Dino or Vision that should hold up against a lot of cards in that location. Now they probably throw an armor. Okay, so they do protect the Warrior Fall location. It was either that or a Lizard would be the two cards that maybe made sense there. So I'm going to go ahead and throw Sentinel and Nova into Muir Island. We might be able to get some benefit in, if we don't destroy our Nova, at least it'll be a decently powerful card. If they do run a Killmonger, then it'll buff up all of the rest, or if we run the Killmonger ourselves. And so I think I'm going to leave this last slot open. Muir Island typically supports some really strong plays in getting cards just over 9 power. And so next turn we will probably drop our Vision into Muir Island as a way to have him buff up, and he can roam across the board as an 8 power card instead of a 7. And with their mojo, we don't want this lane capped out anyways, so we might even angle towards a Killmonger, maybe a Sentinel and a Killmonger. Just depends on what they're running. We could even do a Devil Dino. Ooh, so the Sarah play here is kind of scary, because it could be any number of cards or any number of plays. I'm going to move our Vision over into Jotunheim. Do we think 8 power over there is good enough? Probably. They retreated, so I'm guessing they didn't have any great cards in hand. They had 5. We could have done our Devil Dino here. We had already had a pretty good push in this location, and they would have had to push power into these 3 to try to find their win conditions. Let's jump over into the next one. That was a little anticlimactic as with the retreat coming in. Let's jump over into the next one, see if we can get some maybe decent gameplays. Most of these are ending in retreat just because we out-tempo the opponent, but I think that's where our strength is going to lie in this list, is that it's going to just outpower an average hand for most decks. And then if they have their strong hand, then we retreat out and we reset. All right, next up we have Nostrum. The first location is Nova. We're going to go ahead and just throw it out onto the board. The first location is Morag. We're going to go ahead and just throw our Nova out onto the board. We do have Sentinel that we'll be able to play a couple of times over the course of the game. If we draw into our Vision, we can actually use it to move over into Kunlun, and it'll become a 9 power card instead of a 7. And it looks like they're running a Patriot deck list. A lot of times, if they have their high roll, we don't necessarily or can't necessarily do incredibly well. Now, what we might be able to do is if they are looking to develop their board with a Patriot on the last turn, we do have a Killmonger. So if we can angle it where we don't have initiative going to the last turn of the game, then maybe we can destroy their deck, destroy their power push. Otherwise, without running an Enchantress or any other large power card, this matchup does become quite a bit more difficult. So we're going to go ahead and play White Queen. That will let us know that they do have Dr. Doom in their hand, so they'll be able to push at least 5 more power here. I'm going to go ahead and play our Vision. I'm going to go ahead and play Vision. We might do a Dr. Doom to push 5 more power over into Morag. They have Blue Marvel, which will buff up all of their cards a little bit. So if they do a Dr. Doom, then that's going to give them 8 power here, and it would let them win in Morag. I think we're going to try the Devil Dino. Now, if this is an Ultron, with Ultron, this would end up being an 8 power lane, and we still outpace that with the Vision and Nova. So I think no matter what their last turn play is here, unless they are doing a combo of like a Patriot and a Mystique, if they're going with like the Doom or the Ultron, then I think we have them outpaced. They didn't snap. I'm not confident enough to snap into this turn. I am confident enough to know that if they don't have a really strong last turn play, then we can outpace them here. And they do end up retreating as well. Very anticlimactic games, but we are slowly chipping away at the cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Krez, and they lost their Silver Surfer. We lost a Nova. All right, next up we have the Vecna, and we just matched up against them and ended up forcing a retreat from them on the last turn. The locations weren't great. It was a pretty lackluster game, or else I would have included it. But the Vecna is a pretty smart player. They've been playing since the beta. They got infinite rank in the very first season. Right now, that's the only way to get the Hulk avatar, and so we know that they are very knowledgeable. And now, last time we did get the advantage on them, I'm going to go ahead and drop Storm. Next turn, we can do White Queen. That will give us some information onto what kind of deck they're running. We do have Shang-Chi. Last time we did see a Red Skull come down, and then we were angling to Shang-Chi it to destroy it, and they ended up retreating. So I'm going to go ahead and play the White Queen. That will actually max out our hand. We're not going to be able to draw a new card next turn, but I think it's okay. The Dracula is actually really beneficial for them in the flooded location, but with our Killmonger, we can always drop that on the last turn. We can drop a Vision and then move this over. We could drop Lizard and Killmonger this turn to destroy them, but what I want to do is drop our Vision. We know that they have at least an Infinite in their hand, and they skip this turn. I think they skip this turn. They pull into their Red Skull. We pull into our Shang-Chi, which is fortunate for us, unfortunate for them. And that leads us into our next kind of conundrum. I think what we're going to do is do a Nova into Grand Central. We're going to do Lizard and Killmonger into Morag. We're going to destroy the Nova. If they have a Doctor Doom, something that goes wide, that's going to push 5 power here. We'll beat the 5 power in this location. We push a decent amount here. We push actually 21, which would beat the high roll from the Infinite that they have. And they skipped last turn, so they will most likely play the Infinite here and then pull into one other card. So I'm going to try this again. We're going to try and snap. If not, then we'll just end the video with a retreat. I would rather see it play out to a 4 or even an 8 cube game, but we'll see. We'll see how this one, we'll see if he sticks around. He's a very smart heads-up player. He knows when he doesn't have a great shot, but he does play Nightcrawler into the flooded zone. We have our Killmonger, which destroys the power that he has in Morag, as well as the Nightcrawler that moved over into the flooded lane. We have now 21 power in the flooded location. They drop their Enchantress and a Calling Wing, which discards their Maximus and allows the guaranteed, pull into the Infinite, which was the 19 power play. We were able to outpace it by 2, and we finally get a game that goes the full distance, and we end up getting 4 cubes. Now, I don't think that would work against the Vecna again. I think we got lucky because we're running a very off-meta deck, but as a pool 2 only deck, you can consistently win. You can consistently get cubes, but it is going to be a little bit slower. You have to play to your advantages. You will probably have to retreat more often if the opponent has their high roll. Otherwise, you push a lot of value and a lot of power out onto the board. Now, I tested this deck for about 15 games. Of those 15, I won 53%, so it's a very close deck. But for being pool 2 only, and for how accessible it does have some merit. I think if you're a free-to-play player or you don't have a very deep collection, this is a pretty decent shot at pushing quite a bit of power. Your climb is going to be very back and forth, but even with a maxed out collection, my climb was back and forth. And so definitely check this list out. If you run this list, let me know how it goes for you in the comment section down below. I'm going to test this out just a little bit more. If I have any kind of major updates, I will leave them in the comment section. I will pin a comment on this video. But otherwise, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.